The scar on my chest feels itchy, like a spider crawling under my skin. I drag my fingers across it, the raised line a cruel reminder. Then I remember why it's there. A single tear rolls down my cheek and I brush it away angrily. No more crying. It doesn't solve anything. I stand up, feeling dizzy for a moment, but my headache won't keep me down. There's laundry to do. Always laundry. I throw open the closet and grab his suit jacket, ready to toss it in the basket. Something falls out of the pocket, crinkled and half hidden. My fingers tremble a bit as I pick it up. A condom wrapper. My pulse quickens. But it could be old, right? I know I should just throw it away and forget about it, but the smell. That damn cheap perfume gives me a headache. It's the same one as last time. And the time before that. His excuses are starting to blur together. Late night at the office. Gotta go. Urgent business trip. Liar. He'll be home soon, and I need to know. Honey? My voice is shaky as I hold up the wrapper. What the hell is this? He stares, eyes wide for a second before his face twists into annoyance. Don't start this again. That's probably from ages ago. You're always snooping. His words sting. Ages ago? It smells fresh, Tom. And what about last week? Remember your business trip? I just got the text message from that fancy restaurant you guys went to. Real professional dinner you had there. His mouth sets in a hard line and he storms past me, knocking my shoulder. Jesus, you're so paranoid. Grow up and stop imagining things. He slams the door behind him and I'm left standing there, the wrapper crumpled in my fist. A week later, it's not my imagination playing tricks on me. The doctor's voice is muffled, like there's cotton in my ears. Breast cancer. Stage 2. It's treatable, but I don't hear the rest. I see Tom's face, the flash of, is that disgust? Am I imagining that too? No. His shoulders stiffen, his eyes look away like he can't even bear to look at me. The world keeps moving. Appointments get made, procedures are scheduled. His concern feels like an act. Can't miss another day of work, he mutters when they explain I'll need a double mastectomy. He barely touches me afterward, the sight of my body now repulsive to him. The bandages come off a week after surgery, and I almost don't want to look. Tom does though, and the scowl that crosses his face is like a punch to the gut. He hasn't touched me properly since. Just quick, half-hearted hugs like I'm made of glass. Fragile. Disgusting. More like. My hair's falling out in clumps. I decided to just go ahead and shave it. Feels weird, the razor buzzing against my scalp. When I look in the mirror, I don't even recognize myself. I look sick, and tired, and old. Tom keeps dropping hints. There are wigs, you know, for after treatment. He makes it sound like wearing a wig would somehow make me normal again. He's been extra grumpy, slamming doors, mumbling to himself all the time. I get it, the whole thing's been hard. But the way he calls me, patient, instead of my name, it makes my skin crawl. Then last night, I was finally falling asleep and I reached for him like I used to, just wanting a little warmth. He flinched, scooting away and mumbling something about not wanting to wake me up. Lies. It hurt so damn much in that moment, more than the chemo or the surgery or anything. Support group was my saving grace. The women there understood. Some of them bawled too, some had their scars like me. But Fran, she was different. There was a spark in her eyes, like she was alive, not just surviving. She made me laugh in a way I forgot how. We started meeting for coffee after group, then going for walks. One time, she brought me those fancy chocolates from the shop downtown. It felt like I was a real person again, not just a cancer patient. My life was this narrow little tunnel, treatments, feeling sick, worrying about the kids, and Fran made it feel wide open somehow. Then Tom's dad died. Suddenly, I'm packing his bags, taking care of the kids alone. I had chemo the day of the funeral, not that he cared. He just yelled at me for being selfish, that I was ruining things for everyone. Honestly, part of me was relieved I didn't have to go. The chemo made me feel like crap, and I knew I'd be dragging my feet, being a downer at the funeral. He didn't deserve to have his perfect little family picture ruined by me. The hospital smells like bleach and stale coffee. I wish I'd brought a book or something, but that last chemo session left my brain feeling like mush. The chair's too hard, the drip too slow. It all feels like some kind of twisted torture they save for sick women. That's when I see her. Fran. Standing there at the doorway, a bright scarf wrapped around her head. She smiles, and it's like a wave of relief washes over me. I hadn't dared to ask her to come, but she's here anyway. Hey, she says, don't look so gloomy. I come prepared. She flashes a magazine and a bag of snacks at me. Even through the haze, I manage a shaky laugh. Those next few hours are a blur. Fran sits by my side the whole time, chatting about mindless stuff to take my mind off the needle and the poison they're pumping into me. I close my eyes at one point, just to rest them, and she doesn't even take it as a hint to leave like everyone else would. The worst comes later, once they've unhooked me and sent me home. My stomach twists and turns, and I just know what's coming. Fran doesn't flinch. She holds the trash can steady as I heave, and brings me a cold washcloth for my face afterward. I'm shaking too much to even do that for myself. You okay? She asks, and there's no pity in her voice, just a quiet concern that makes me want to cry all over again. I nod, but it feels like another lie. Take off your wig, she says suddenly, and I'm so startled I just stare at her. It's probably itchy anyway, and you're just going to sweat right through it. Before my brain can think of any excuses, she's already gently lifting the wig off. I see her eyes widen for a second, but she doesn't say a word. Just takes a damp cloth and wipes my bald head. You're beautiful, she whispers. I feel the tears start to well up, stupid tears of gratitude, and she pulls me into a hug. It's the first real hug I've gotten in so long. You want to watch a stupid movie or something? She asks later. I can't summon the energy to argue. She makes some popcorn and brings in a stack of DVDs. We end up watching some ridiculous rom-com, the kind I would have hated before all this. But Fran keeps making these goofy comments that make me laugh through the nausea. This guy's an idiot, she whispers at one point, and something about her tone makes me look over. She's holding a joint between her fingers. It takes me a moment to process the offer. I haven't done that in forever, I manage to mumble. It might help with the tummy troubles, she says with a shrug, and a good laugh can't hurt either. The room smells like Fran's perfume mixed with the faint scent of weed. My head feels foggy, still spinning a bit. We ended up talking half the night, about dumb stuff mostly, but it felt good to talk to someone, to feel normal for a few hours. The kisses happened gradually, laughter turning into lingering glances, a brush of hands on the couch. And suddenly, her lips were on mine. It felt good. Not like Tom's kisses, which had become stiff and formal. Fran's kiss was soft, and tasted of freedom somehow. Of wanting something, not just needing it. Then she pulled back. Not like this, she murmured. You're not in your right mind, and I won't take advantage. Her eyes were soft but serious. I wanted to protest. No, wait, she was right. The chemo had left me shaky and weak, and the joint. I was vulnerable. Fran saw that, even when I couldn't admit it to myself. We fell asleep on the couch, tangled up together like when my kids were little and would climb into bed with me. I woke up feeling weird. A mix of excitement and absolute dread. The memories of the night came flooding back. The kiss, the way Fran looked at me before she fell asleep. And suddenly, it wasn't just about feeling good in the moment anymore. It was about wanting more. The next morning, I kept busy. I cleaned the kitchen like a madwoman, scrubbing until my hands were raw. All to avoid looking at the phone in the little bubble that said she'd texted. I kept thinking about the kids. They'd be back in a few days, and that thought. It made me want to crawl into a hole and hide. Guilt gnawed at me every time I laughed with them, every bedtime story I read. They didn't deserve this mess, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. Sometimes, I'd catch my reflection in the mirror and see a stranger. I saw Fran's eyes looking back at me sometimes, and it thrilled and terrified me all at once. One morning, I couldn't stand it anymore. I texted her, the words spilling out of me like a confession. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have. It was a mistake, but I trailed off, not sure how to finish the thought. I needed to see her, but I knew I shouldn't. I knew nothing good could come of it. Every time my phone buzzes, it feels like a jolt of electricity. It's always Fran, checking up, leaving sweet little messages like nothing happened. At first, I read them. Then, I just started swiping the notifications away without opening them. It felt like a form of self-preservation. The kids are finally back. They run to me, full of chattering questions about Papa's funeral. Every enthusiastic hug feels like another betrayal, like there's a space growing between us that I created. I force a smile, the same one I've been practicing on myself in the mirror every morning, and say all the right mom things. That afternoon, when the kids are doing their homework, I sneak off to the bathroom. My hands are shaking when I unlock my phone, a mix of fear and longing washing over me. Fran sent a picture, her with a friend at the coffee shop, bright smile like nothing's amiss. Like my silence doesn't scream volumes. A part of me aches for that normalcy, that life without guilt and lies. Tom gets home that evening, tired-eyed but doing his best to put on a good dad show. He hugs the kids, goes over their math problems, and sits down to dinner like a normal family picture. I barely eat, my stomach clenched with disgust. His touch used to be a comfort. Now, every accidental brush of his hand makes me want to crawl out of my skin. Later, he climbs into bed beside me, expecting. It makes me want to scream. He smells like the cheap perfume, the one from his affairs. All I can think about is Fran. The way her hands felt on my skin, the tenderness in her eyes. Not tonight, I managed to choke out. It's the first time I've ever refused him. His face twists in irritation, he's not used to it. Okay, you're still feeling rough. I get it, he mutters, but I can tell he's annoyed. He rolls away, and the relief I feel is tainted with shame and a strange sort of thrill. That night, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling. I see Fran's face, then Tom's, the accusations in his eyes when he finds out. I don't know how much longer I can keep this charade up, the guilt and the secret burning through me. I miss Fran. I miss myself. But I feel stuck, trapped in a life I've built on a foundation of lies and betrayal, and now there's just more to add to the pile. I should have known it would come to this. The stupid red hair, a single strand clinging to the seat of his car. I didn't even try to make up some excuse. Maybe the kids tracked something in. He just stood there, staring at it with this cold look in his eyes. What is this? He demanded, his voice dangerously low. It's the same tone he's used on me 100 times, questioning, accusatory. This time though, there's something different behind it. Fear, maybe? You know what it is, I replied. I surprised myself. My voice barely shook, and this small defiance ignited something in me. He didn't yell like I expected. Instead, he went pale and started sputtering. Is this some sick joke? You think this is funny? No, Tom, I said, my voice growing stronger. You think it's funny, sleeping around all these years, while I took care of the kids, while I went through hell with cancer. And you thought you could just get away with it. He stared at me, dumbfounded. I hadn't planned this, hadn't imagined a confrontation like this. But the words poured out of me. I told him everything. About finding the rappers, about the texts, and about how his touch repulsed me after I saw the way he looked at other women. His face twisted into a mixture of shock and rage. He started shouting, denying the affairs at first, then blaming me. Look at yourself. With your bald head and those awful scars, you think I want that? His cruelty stung, but oddly, it didn't hurt as much as it used to. So go ahead, Tom, I said, my voice shaking slightly, but determined. Yell all you want, but I'm done. Done with you. Done with feeling sorry for myself. Done with staying in this pathetic marriage. He stood there, eyes blazing with fury. And for the first time in years, I didn't shrink under his gaze. We stared at each other across the kitchen, both of us breathing heavily. You'll regret this, he spat out. Maybe, I replied, but I won't regret having a life free from you. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. And I stood there, shaking, exhilarated, and deeply afraid, all at the same time. I had no idea what was going to happen next. But I'd finally taken a stand, and it felt both terrifying and liberating in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Support group meetings used to be unbearable. I'd sit there feeling like an imposter, with my fake smile plastered on. Now, with Fran beside me, it was different. The women there saw through me, knew the cracks in my facade were real, but they didn't judge. It felt like a lifeline in those early weeks. Fran and I, it was undefined. We'd go for long walks, coffee dates that stretched into evenings, movies on the couch with our knees pressed together. She felt like the first real friend I'd had in ages, someone who knew my ugliest parts and didn't turn away. Sometimes we'd talk for hours about my marriage, how it had crumbled. Other days, we wouldn't mention Tom at all. I'd start opening up about other stuff, the kids, surviving cancer, dreams I'd tucked away long ago. There were moments, on my worst days, where I'd crave more than friendship. Aching, desperate moments when I just wanted to sink into her touch and forget all about the mess I'd made of my life. But Fran never crossed that line. I don't know if it was out of respect for me, or something else, but it kept things safe in a way that I probably needed. My energy came in bursts. Some days, I'd clean the house with a ferocity that hadn't existed for years, a need to purge the past from every corner. Others, I'd just curl up in bed, drained, staring at the ceiling. Fran was there during both, offering a helping hand or giving quiet company. One afternoon, she handed me an old notebook. "You were always such a writer," she said with a gentle smile. Thought maybe this could help. Something inside me flickered. I started with little things, just jotting down what I felt each day. Then, I found myself writing about Tom, about the lies, the betrayal, the moments I'd shrunk myself down just to make him comfortable. Putting my thoughts into words felt like setting them free. Fran listened as I read parts aloud, eyes burning with tears I was too proud to let fall. Sometimes, she'd just nod, offering a gentle squeeze of my hand. My lawyer called. Tom was playing dirty, the fight over assets getting uglier. "He'll give in," she assured me. "We just need to be relentless." After the call, a wave of fury washed over me. I sat at my computer and a blog idea started brewing. I could share my story. Not just the cancer part, but the whole messy truth. A way to help others, to take back power over my own life, to show him it wouldn't destroy me. My kids looked at me like I was a stranger. They'd spent the summer with Tom, and he'd been busy filling their heads with his version of the truth. How I was the one who tore the family apart, how I'd abandoned them. Their eyes would fill with this strange mix of pity and resentment. It cut deeper than any of Tom's insults. Fran tried to help. "They're kids," she'd say. "They're hurting too, just in a different way." I knew she was right, but my heart would ache, feeling this distance between myself and the children I'd carried. It was almost a relief when they'd go back to stay with their dad. The blog was gaining traction. My words resonated with people, mostly women. Messages poured in from strangers thanking me for speaking my truth, for helping them feel less alone. I felt a surge of bitter satisfaction knowing Tom had probably seen it evidence of my life continuing without him, stronger for it. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was my daughter. Her voice was small, younger than it should have been. "Mom, can we talk?" That night, we sat on her bed. I laid it all out. The affairs, the way he'd made me feel, the reasons why I couldn't stay. She listened, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you say anything before?" she asked. Her question felt like an accusation. "I was scared," I confessed. "And ashamed. I wanted to protect you." We talked until the birds started chirping outside. It wasn't a clean, perfect reconciliation. The hurt was still there. But a sliver of understanding appeared, something we could build on. One day, my lawyer called. "We got it," she said. "He finally caved. It's a fair settlement." She rattled off figures that meant nothing to me, only that the financial stranglehold he'd been using was gone. I finally confronted Tom face to face. It wasn't the dramatic showdown I'd imagined in my angrier moments. Instead, there was a cold sort of calm as I laid out everything. The way he'd underestimated me, the power shift I now held. There was a defeated look in his eyes, a realization that the game was over. The day I sold the house, it felt like shedding an old skin. Fran offered to drive me to the airport. "France?" she suggested with a hopeful grin. "Or maybe somewhere warmer?" I kissed her cheek. "Maybe later," I said, but I wasn't sure. Right now, all I needed was space, a fresh start somewhere far away. I began looking at apartments online, picturing smaller, brighter spaces, filled with books I'd finally have time to read, hobbies I could do just for the joy of it. For the first time in forever, the choices were all mine. The new city held a certain promise. Sea air and bustling cafes replaced the sameness of suburbia. My apartment was small, but the window seat was perfect for reading and watching the world go by. The loneliness was a new kind, intentional. Mornings were spent walking along the shoreline, giving my thoughts room to breathe. Some days, the past still weighed heavy, but more often, I'd find myself musing about what to do next. Volunteering at the animal shelter filled those empty spaces. A trembling kitten in my arms felt more fulfilling than anything in ages. Fran texted often. I missed her, but a space was necessary, a chance to find myself outside of others. The blog remained my focus. I interviewed other survivors, amplifying their voices. A comment stood out. "You gave me the voice I didn't know I had." It fueled me. An email arrived, an invitation to speak at a women's conference. Me? Public speaking? My first instinct was pure terror. But then, a defiant thought. Why not? Time to face my fears head on, and use this pain to help